Yeah, I don't know, you can kind of go at it a lot of ways. I think, one thing is that, well, like, I'll always use you as a reference. Like, more than anyone, like, anyone can beat anyone, right? Especially a tournament like that, like, you look at, um, the game where Switzerland almost beat Sweden, right? In the quarters. It's like anyone can beat anyone, and you can never go into a game thinking that it's automatic. And not saying we did, and I'm not. I don't really think there is an answer. I think it's just the way hockey is. I think you can't win every game. Don't get me wrong. I think maybe we wanted a couple bounces to go our way, but again, it's one of those things where sometimes you just fall short. And I think
That was the 11th overall selection from the 2022 NHL entry draft and current Swift Current Bronco, Conor Geekie, and you are listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podollan. Just watch me now. Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podollan, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podollan, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. This is the first episode of 2024. And I'm excited to bring it to you. We had a little bit of a hiatus from the podcast over break. As with anything in life, sometimes we do need a break. And Christmas is always an awesome time for a hockey family because you get to step away from the ranks. We have 3 kids that are, that we're chasing all over Western Canada with their hockey. And with Christmas becomes an opportunity just to put everything on pause. And we're not driving children to schools. We're not picking them up for practice. We're not doing anything. We're just chilling. And with that in mind, I took my foot off the gas with the podcast and decided just to breathe and to enjoy the time of year. So this is the first one of 2024, and it is a good one because we have Conor Geekie back on the podcast. Conor Geekie is a former guest as we interviewed him, I believe, as a 16-year-old with the Winnipeg Ice. It was the bubble season, so it was during COVID. I believe, I can't remember now exactly. I think he was like 2nd overall, potentially in the WHL draft. So he was a top prospect, and he was into his 16-year-old season, going through what junior hockey players go through at that young age. And he was also already on the draft board for the following season as a potential top pick. And we haven't talked since. So a lot has happened for Conor in the 2 or 3 years since we last spoke. One being that he had an amazing season with an amazing team, the Winnipeg Ice last season, and they didn't get exactly where they wanted to go as far as a team, and fell short of the Memorial Cup. But he did have a solid season, which launched him into the 11th overall selection in the 2022 entry draft to the Phoenix Coyotes. So Arizona Coyotes, I guess, as they are called now. And so we haven't talked about that. Winnipeg Ice relocated to Wenatchee. So that has been new for Conor. He just got selected to the World Junior team where they were ousted in the quarterfinals for Canada. So that was disappointing, and also new. He just got back from that. And yesterday, it was all over social media that he had just been traded from the Wenatchee Wild to the Swift Current Broncos in a blockbuster deal that brought a lot of draft picks and a couple players back to Wenatchee. So there's really a ton that has gone on. And even within the small little ecosystem and time frame of the World Junior Tournament, he was somebody that the media cycle was turning to, whether it was because of the size of the knob on his stick or the way he would prepare for games, or what his pregame routine would be leaving the ice, or his 5-minute major in the Germany game 11 seconds in. There seemed to be somebody talking about Conor Geekie at all times. And if Geekie is a name that you are familiar with, it's for good reason. He has an older brother, Morgan, that is currently playing with the Boston Bruins. Morgan started his career with the Carolina Hurricanes. He got taken in the expansion draft by Seattle, and now he is with Boston and had a really big night last night, actually. So Conor has an older brother to mentor him and to look up to, who is already toiling in the NHL, and Conor obviously has aspirations to do that in the upcoming near future with Arizona. So yeah, great interview. One of the things that I will highlight, I mean, with all the turmoil, well, maybe turmoil is too strong of a word, but I mean, a relocation of a junior team is quite strange. And even like the coach, Constantine, got fired when he was there. That's another thing that happened while he was at camp. There's just been a lot that's been going around Conor and been circling around. But despite all of the chaos, let's call it, or all the newness of what's been going on for him in the last 12 months or so, he's managed to have an absolutely sparkling start to the WHL season. He's 26 games in, 20 goals in 26 games and 49 points. So almost averaging 2 points a game at the WHL level. He's definitely found his stride here this season, and is obviously now going to concentrate his efforts on helping the Swift Current Broncos go as far as possible this season. And what looks to be Conor's last year in junior, he will be a 20-year-old next year, which will allow him to play pro hockey in the AHL if he is unable to make the Coyotes team out of training camp. So that's a whole new world now for Conor next year, and the next 3 months are going to be focused on finishing his junior career off with a bang. One thing you'll notice about Conor, and I think one of the things that kind of was highlighted throughout the World Junior Championship, where we get to know these players on a much more personal level, is that Conor's a bit of a free spirit. He's a little bit of a freewheeler. He has some swagger to him. He has he has this personality that he doesn't really care what other people think. And I say that in the most positive way possible. I mean, one of the things that I talk about with my players in my mindset program is there's a section on FOPO, which we call fear of other people's opinion. Sometimes this can be something that really holds us back, whether it be in the locker room, whether it be amongst our peer group, whether it be from a coach's mentality or what the scouts are thinking. This idea of what people are thinking of us can really put a shell around us and cause us to shrink. Conor seems like he is wired a little differently. Like he has a mature understanding at a very young age of who he is as a person and who he is as a player. And he is going to go about his business the way he sees best, that is going to allow him to play his best. Now, this is not inherent to everyone out there. As I said, this is something that can really hold people back. But I love the fact that Conor is able to figure that out. It's a dynamic aspect, right? Playing your best hockey consistently and figuring out how to do that and how to grow. I say that there's usually two sides to that coin. There's a player identity side, which some of us are familiar with, and some players aren't as familiar with as they should be. And that's something else that I work with players on sometimes, is understanding their uniqueness as an athlete and their uniqueness as a player and what skill set they need to provide to their team to make an impact on a consistent basis, to help them stand out as an individual, yet also give their team the best chance to win. Oftentimes players take a while for them to figure that out, what it is, what groove they need to find as a player that can really establish themselves and make a name for themselves in the game. The other side of that coin, though, is the personal side, the personal identity, and who you are as a person, and being authentic with that idea of who you are to also allow yourself to have the most impact in a game. These are two different conversations, and the personal side is something that can be difficult to figure out as well. I call that your personal operating manual. How do you prepare? How do you interact with your team? How do you show up in a way that's going to allow you to play your best hockey? And for somebody like Conor, in a game like hockey that is like a gladiatorial style game, right? It's this idea that we are going to battle, we're going to go to war, and we're going to compete, and there's this edge to the game. somebody that's a free spirit like Conor, and I can completely relate to him, which is why I find him so endearing, is that I was super competitive, as Conor is, yet my approach to competitiveness wasn't one of staring somebody down or being silent before the game or being all stoic. I was more aloof. I was more loose. Conor seems to be cut from the same cloth, that he is somebody that's going to walk in with a smile instead of a scowl. Now, does that mean that he's not going to compete? Does that mean he's not going to run someone over? No. But perception is something that can be challenging, especially for a player like Conor and like myself, because we know that there's people looking, there's people watching, and there's people judging. And they are going to make up their own ideas of what somebody who's dancing in the locker room 5 minutes before they go out means. What does that mean? Does that mean he's not ready? Does that mean he doesn't care? No, quite contrary in a lot of scenarios. But it is hard for that player to be themselves, to own themselves. Because if a player like Conor is sitting in his stall and isn't talking to anyone and is stoic and is super serious, he's not going to go out there and play the type of game that he needs to play. So performance, there's nuance to it. It's crazy. And that's why there's so much individuality to being your best and being able to understand how to play your best, and why I find high performance so intriguing in a team sport like hockey, where you are trying to influence decision makers about why you belong a certain place. It's not just like being a 100-meter sprinter. And if you can run fast and get the right time, it doesn't matter what you do outside of that. Hockey is a game where, again, you need to fit into an ecosystem. You need to be a part of a team. And yes, you do have a set of analytics and a set of stats that comes with you. There's also the perception of what those stats are and the perception of who you are that matters. So a very, very delicate line to walk. But I think Conor's doing a great job of it. Obviously, he's found a way and approach to the game that is very that is working for him. I mean, who can argue with 49 points in 26 games? Obviously doing his part. I thought he had a strong World Junior Championship, and it looks like he is growing as a player and as a person to find out what works for him. So lots of great stuff to take away from this interview. And I guess without further ado, let's dive in and speak to the 11th overall pick from the 2022 draft, Mr. Conor Geekie. Welcome back to the podcast for round two, Conor.
Yeah, one last tooth.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, you're looking like a real hockey player now. When did that happen?
Well, I had a root canal on it, and then yeah, I had to. I just had to pull it. It got infected, and here we are.
Well, there you go. So it's not even a good war story.
No, it's not. It's not that good.
No one punched it out. No high stick. No nothing.
No, it's just gone.
Well, there you go. At least you fit the part. Hey, look the part now.
Try to.
Yeah, man. You were so last time we talked. For those listening and want to go back and listen to it, actually, it was great. I thought you did an awesome job at the time. Conor was in the bubble, and he had first year in the WHL. Was a very high pick in the WHL draft, and so we were just chatting about life in the WHL as a young man, and now here we are 3 years later. Conor just finished a round in Sweden with the Canadian World Junior team. He's 11th overall pick in 2022 to the Phoenix Coyotes, and having a breakout, I would call it, season this year in the WHL. So yeah, a lot has happened, man, since the last time we talked, and I don't even really know where the best place to start. Like maybe of the moment, I guess. Maybe we'll just go of the moment because you just got back from World Junior and you just got traded, which is both two crazy things. So maybe we'll go even more of the moment and just say the trade, which got announced yesterday. Like, was that the first you knew of it? Was yesterday?
Yeah, no, like I had an idea. Like I think me and Savoy kind of knew going into this year that they kind of had to, right? I think they didn't have many picks. I mean, we went for it for 3 years in a row. So they didn't have many picks, so we were kind of expecting to get traded. And to be honest, I would say Swift was really on the radar for me. I think it was, not that I'm mad at going to Swift Current. Closer to home, obviously. I like Swift. I like the small towns, but I think it was just like Portland's going for it. Prince George is having a really good year. Moose Jaw's going for it. Saskatoon. So it was kind of just like a whirlwind. And then before World Juniors, I heard that maybe they had some interest, and I obviously didn't think anything of it. Kind of wasn't really on my mind.
Yeah.
And there's lots of guys, wondering what's going on, and I'm the guy that, I kind of live for the I don't know part of the story. So, yeah, I got home. I want to say 2 days ago. Slept, woke up, and got a call, and they just said, "Yeah, we're gonna trade you on a Swift Current," and that was kind of it. It was kind of just a pretty quick little turnaround. Obviously, I love, Swift Current's really nice. I love Saskatchewan. I love being close to home, but more than anyone, just saying bye to the Billets, saying bye to Sav, who I played with for since I was 15 years old. I think it's one of those things. It's a new chapter, but it's obviously really hard to kind of wrap your mind around it that it's over that quick.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of well, I guess even to go back a little bit farther is the move, right? Like that was kind of strange in of itself. And I mean the move from Winnipeg to Wenatchee and how that all went down. So I mean you kind of feel, at least I did. I felt like when I was in junior, I was gonna always be a Spokane Chief. And lucky enough for me, I was.
Yeah.
And then I felt that was gonna be the same way in pro and found out in a big hurry that it's not going to be that way at all. But yeah, I mean, being in one spot and kind of being attached to a team that drafts you and all that stuff is, there's some loyalty there, I think, and there's a little bit of emotion that goes along with that. And then you guys had that move. Like maybe let's go back even to that. What was that like for you in the summer, finding out that you weren't going to be in Winnipeg anymore?
Yeah, I think um, a lot of frustration, I think, from a lot of people. Obviously we heard the rumors and we heard this and that, but we were promised one more year, and I think that's all the guys really wanted was just one more kick at the can. I think we had a good team. Obviously, Wenatchee's, I think second in their division, right? So we were fully ready to kind of give it one more go, and I found out. My girlfriend texted me and she said I saw this on Facebook. So I would say we didn't really get it handled the best way that we thought was possible. And I think there was just a lot of things going on that we didn't really know about kind of throughout the whole year, maybe. But again, like Winnipeg, the organization, I have nothing against them. They were unbelievable to me. We obviously had 3 great years with the team. They did everything they could to kind of keep us in Winnipeg, and I think it just fell through a little short. But turning it over to Wenatchee, I mean, they found out in like June or July, and they had to have a team ready by September. So it was a really quick turnaround for them. So like huge kudos to them getting a team, getting everything organized, and I think they themselves thought that they were going to have one more year to kind of prepare and get everything ready, but it was just everything happened so fast. We were all just kind of in shock.
So it was the same thing for you guys because like I know a few guys in the back end, and I don't know if they want me to name names or not, so I won't. But like none of the staff came. Like that was super weird to me, right? Like and really reputable people that didn't come. Like how was the feeling with that? Like leaving your coach behind and some of the people that were involved there for so many years with you.
Yeah, I think like obviously, maybe it makes sense to the GMs or whatever, just right, you want to have your own team, you want to have this and that, but even like our GM, like he drafted us, it was kind of like we were expecting him to come. Obviously, James Patrick, our head coach, got me. I genuinely wouldn't be where I am without him. So I was, really disappointed and sad to see that. Just because one more year with him could have, excelled me in who knows what way, right? I think, we just got a new coach last year, Terrace McEwen. He was, he just got the job. We were really excited. And then next thing you know, he's got to go find a new job, right? It was just everyone just kind of lost out on so many jobs that we felt so bad for. Because, we weren't losing our job, right?
Yeah.
We automatically had a spot and they didn't. The funny thing is now the Terrace McEwen is the head coach of Swift, so I'm going to play under him. So that makes it easier to go to Swift as well. But yeah, it was definitely a shock. It was like a huge eye opener for us because like we loved our trainers, like we loved our staff, we loved everything about it. And it even goes into the depths of the media people. Everyone
Yeah.
kind of knew who you were as a person. So
Right.
kind of changing that whole thing is it's always hard to do.
Well, and you'd think too, like, and the one thing I can share anonymously is like it sounded like there was no communication from Wenatchee to the Winnipeg staff. So not only were they not brought over, but there wasn't like a call to be in like, hey, what's Conor Geekie like? Like what can we do to help him, or what have you learned from him? Like as far as from a personnel standpoint, which I thought was like quite strange. Just because you do want to know the guys. I think you'd want to have a little bit of insight of how to coach you, or what has been successful in the past or whatever, but. It sounded like that wasn't communicated. Maybe there was just some bad. That whole thing was kind of a little bit strange from what I heard, just with maybe some bad blood and some animosity. So it is what it is. But then didn't Constantine get let go too when you were there?
So it was like, so I was in Arizona. I was like, I told obviously my dad. I told Dad, I was like, I'm not gonna let any of this. Like, I'm not there yet. I'm not planning on being there, right? I had that mindset to try and make the team.
Yeah.
And then next thing Graham Swartz calling me. He goes, Geeks, like, you'll never guess what happened. And I was like, what could have happened? Like, what'd you do? Did you like crash your car or something? He's like, no, like our coach just got fired. I can't really go into detail of it, but apparently it was just everyone was in shock. It was before the game. Everyone was dialed in, and so that was really quick turnaround. And then, I came about a week later, and, they had two assistant coaches trying to run a system that our head coach left behind. So it was a bit of a cluster F there for my first 5 games. And then Roy Sommer came along, obviously one of my favorite coaches. I know it was really brief, but he did a great job at kind of bringing everyone in, and kind of ever since he came in, I think our team definitely took off to another level.
Yeah, man. The more I think about that, I kind of forgot about the whole Constantine thing, and like, wow, like what a bunch of turmoil really in the last little while for you. And that's kind of maybe just a little bit of a dip your toe in the water of what hockey's kind of like at times, right? Like you take it as a game, and we love doing it and all the rest of it, but then all of a sudden the business side comes in, and you start to see sort of all that right in front of you, unfolded, and then you still got to go and do your job. Was there any issue with you? I mean, you seem like a pretty freewheeling, not too much bothers you kind of guy. Like, were you able to sort of keep it on the rails there when all this was going on?
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, you kind of got to bang on. I don't really, I kind of do my own thing. I don't really let anything kind of dictate what I do, on and off the ice. I think for me, it's, I get told every day by my mom and dad, it's like, you're just a child when you're around the rink. And I was like, that's the best way I can play, because you see those guys that are just so dialed in, and something like that happens. It's like, now what, right? They don't have that backup plan. And I'm not saying to tell anyone they have to be freewheeling. They need to, but I told kind of the guys on the team, I came back and I said, like, we can't let any of this bother us, because we can't control it. It has nothing to do with us. Let's just go play hockey. Let's laugh. Let's have fun. Let's go win. And I said, because I think they had a losing record when I got there. And I told Swarto, I said, dude, like, I'm not coming here to lose. Like, I'm not coming in and rolling over. So, I think for me, I've never really had an issue with any adversity. Obviously, like, I can never thank my parents and my brothers enough, and obviously the people around me. But I think, a lot of it I've kind of built up on my own, just knowing that, not every day is going to be the same day, especially in hockey, because you'll never have the same play twice, right? I think it's kind of that mentality, and knowing that the more I can just see what comes at me on and off the ice, I think the better I am. So
yeah, well, that's great, man. As far as having, I don't know, people talk a lot about player identity, I think, or at least they should, like, kind of what player are you? How do you impact a game? Like, what do you bring to the table that is going to make you special, right? But along with that package, if we can even go a step further is like, what type of person, like, who are you and what do you bring to the
Yeah.
table? And I think that like the game seems to be expanding a bit for me in that way. Like the authenticity of the individual is allowed to be a little bit more. Whereas I know back in the day, it was like we all wore the same suit and we all walked in the same way and we all said the same thing. And that was kind of the way it was designed. For a guy like you, who still is there's some old dinosaurs still around the game, and maybe don't want to see a guy laughing and joking potentially before a game, and they want to see that guy more dialed in. Like, I think it takes a little bit of maturity to stand in your own shoes and say, but this is who I am. This is the way I play my best. Like, have you ever had that internal kind of dialogue about, does this serve me in front of everybody quite the way it might, or I want it to?
Yeah, like I think, I will say it did take me a while to find that balance. I think, the year after my draft year, I had a talk with Jeep, and we were kind of just talking away. And, he brought up like some little like things. He's like, it takes a lot. Like, you need to know you to understand that it's okay. And I think that kind of resonated with me in the fact that, like, I need to find that balance now versus later. Because I don't know, I would go and who knows, I could be way too loose and I knew it, but I could never snap back into it. But yeah, like I found that balance kind of I would say over the summer when it comes to working out, being diligent, what I eat, what I do, blah, 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 blah. And then for sure, like every new team I've ever been on, I think it's like, they go, we need to be dialed in here. Like, and I know who it's directed at. It's probably most likely me. But yeah, I think again, that's what my dad and my mom taught me so well, is just be yourself, but know yourself, right? You don't want to say, oh, I'm just being myself, and it's not really you, right? Because then that defeats the whole purpose of it. So,
Right.
yeah, anyone who's ever came up to me and, they ask, oh, what about your warm up routine? What about that? And I said, it's just me being me. And there's not really a reason behind it. It just kind of stuck with me, or, maybe I do things a different way than some people. And, I think I'll always stand by being who I am. And if that's different, then that's different.
All right. Well, I mean, I love it. I mean, the thing, and because I can relate to you. I mean, I was definitely someone from a different era that seems like my approach was somewhat the same. Like I got undressed after every period. I was like the last one in my equipment. I'd be stretching on the floor 5 minutes before warm up. Like that was something that would be looked at as kind of like, what's this guy doing? Like why is this guy doing this? And even coaches would be like, oh, like they want to put a reason to why what you're doing. And then I found that guys like us, like if I didn't play well, then that was what the reason must be, right? Because I wasn't ready. And it's like, well, no, that's not the case. I mean, anyways, like, so I understand where you're coming from, and I understand too the perception of the way that maybe you come across can allow people to have more questions potentially sometimes, right? So it opens us up to a little bit, but I think like you got to be who you are, and that was the thing that I found, especially at the pro level, like the NHL level, I should say, was like to really own who I was in that environment. I never got to that comfort space, so I couldn't really freewheel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the fact that you're at that spot right now, and I know that you haven't played NHL games yet, but I know it's just around the corner for you. Like the more comfortable you can be walking in there to allow yourself the best opportunity to be you is a huge win.
Yeah, and I think too is like to add on to the be yourself, be whatever. I think people also overlook the fact that like some guys need a guy like that, right? I'm not saying, I'm everyone's best friend. That's not what I'm saying at all. But, people need like kind of dad growing up and mom just always said like a smile goes a long way. So that's stuck with me from day one. It's like I go in there, I could have a tough night. I couldn't sleep, blah, blah, blah. But I'm sure someone is going through something else. Like, who knows, maybe him and his buddy are fighting or whatnot, right? So I just try and always be that person that like they need to be like, hey, Geeks, can you talk to the coach for me? It's like, okay, sure. Or I have a question about this, I have a question about that. I always kind of put my put onus on myself to be that guy that they can come to. And I think that's kind of one of my favorite things, is just to kind of be there for someone that maybe doesn't have the confidence to be like, I don't want to do this. And I could maybe speak up for them. So.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, I love the room matters for sure, and I've said it on this. I've repeated it more than once, probably many times on this show. But it was something that totally stuck with me, and it was Scott Nickel, GM of the Nashville Predators, and he said when they're putting a team together that they can't have 20 milk drinkers.
Yeah.
And just meaning to your point, right? Like not everybody on that team can be the guy with the skates on an hour before the game starts, looking at the floor, all serious, right? Like you need some guys that are going to be in there telling the joke, having a smile, maybe dancing to the music, a little bit loose, getting dialed in their own way. But it just allows that dynamic aspect of what hockey's all about. So you are needed in locker rooms for sure. But the funny thing is, well, I shouldn't say funny, but like I was watching you guys or following. Now I'm talking about the World Junior team, and it looked like you guys were having a lot of fun. And there was one clip, particularly, it was an off day, and I think it might have been before you guys lost in the quarters, where like kind of guys were scrapping around and pulling jerseys over heads. And I don't know, it was this little clip that came out I saw on one of the things. Anyways, I thought it was great, but then you guys end up losing. And then it's like, even a guy like me, I'm like, well, were they too loose? Like, were they taking it too comfortable? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying you were or you weren't, but you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of like that line that you're always kind of, trying to tread is right. Are we having fun? Are we ready? You know what I mean? And did you know as a group if you were or not? Any comments on that? Like, did you guys feel that you were in a good spot, or how did that roll?
Yeah, I believe the clip you're talking about might have been picture day. So I think that was the game before Germany,
Oh, okay.
if I'm not wrong. But again, like there was, I think there was a clip of me and Max Celebrini just just laughing on the bench and, joking around and giving it to each other. But I think, people see that and they're like, well, they didn't win, so maybe that's, like you said, that's where they go, right? And I think what people maybe miss or don't see is, like, me and Mac are laughing, but he's giving it to me if I don't score, and I'm giving it to him, right? So like there's like the joking on the bench, but when we're going against each other, it's like it's an all out, word battle. Like, obviously I can't say what's being said, but if he doesn't score, I'm screaming on the glass, I'm jumping up and down, but he's doing the same thing if I don't score. So then it starts getting that internal little battle between each other. And, next thing you know, we're going, head to head in a one-on-one battle. I think it was before the tournament. He dangled me, obviously. He's an incredible player. He dangled me in this angling drill. And I told him, I said, if you cut back on me one more time, I'm gonna blow you up. And he starts laughing, and everyone starts laughing, and so we go, and I had offense, and I said, no, you got it. He starts laughing, he goes, okay, and everyone kind of knew it was going down, so everyone kind of started watching, I think, and he cut to the middle, and I absolutely drilled him. And again, I did feel bad. It wasn't a huge hit. I think we just both kind of ran into each other, kind of thing. I'd gone his way more than anything. Yeah. But I think that's where people kind of misunderstand the fact that half the time, yeah, we're joking, but the jokes are like making fun of each other for not succeeding, right? So like it's that internal battle that me and Mac really had, and obviously we became really close. But I think I have numerous of those on every team. Is just, oh, you didn't score, watch this. So I didn't score, watch this. And obviously all about it with how long you played. But it's just, that's where the compete level kind of shines in our group, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think it's fun. Like, that's what makes it fun. I mean, I hate quiet rinks. I hate quiet practices, when I'm coaching, and I hate them when I played. Like, I was super vocal, and that was the way to have a good time. Usually with me, it was with the goalies that we'd always be chirping back and forth with each other. But yeah, I mean, you can have a ton of fun and be super competitive and actually be like really fiercely competitive, I mean, in a way that, like we're talking physicality, all this type of stuff. And it doesn't have to boil over to you actually don't like the guy. It's just the idea that you're not going to beat me. Right. And I'm going to beat you. So no, I totally hear where that's coming from. Just want to take a short break from the conversation with Conor to let you guys know 2024, and we have a new website at Up My Hockey. New cover page, did a couple new photos, a little bit of a revamp. So yeah, go there, check out upmyhockey.com. If you want to see what the new layout looks like, let me know what your thoughts are and feedback are. I think it's a little bit easier to navigate and a little bit easier to see what's going on. One of the things that is updated is the UMH 68. That is the Up My Hockey 68. We're bringing it here to BC for the second go around. It was an idea I had last year after attending the BC Cup for the 2009 age group, that I felt that there should have been another stage, and I felt that there should have been the private league players able to play along with the sanctioned players of BC hockey. So we put together a 3-team tournament last year in June. This year it's going to be 4 teams. That's the idea behind the 68. So there'll be 9 forwards, 6D, and 2 goalies on 4 different teams. And this is going to be hand selected, invite only, from the Up My Hockey scouting staff and the people that I have in different networked areas. And we're going to be bringing this to the 2010 age group and also the 2011 age group in British Columbia. So we're trying to put together what is the top 68 players in British Columbia for a showcase and development weekend. Unlike any other thing that is going on right now, it's going to be more than just hockey games. There's also a player banquet. There's also guest speakers. There's presentations from WHL and BCHL. I have a workshop on mindset. We include the parents as well. So it was a very, very successful event last year that we are now going to expand to 2 age groups, and super excited about that. So the details on that are at upmyhockey.com. I am considering, it's getting into the wee hours now where I have to make a decision of bringing it to Alberta. So if there's any Alberta people out there listening and think that this would be a good idea to bring a 2010 and 2011 event to Alberta, where we would be bringing the top 68 players together for 3 days to challenge each other, to compete, and also to grow as people and as players. Let me know. I could be motivated to add this to the repertoire for June. So really excited about that. One of the things with the UMH 68, of course, there's me and there's my network, but British Columbia, and if we end up going to Alberta, are also big places. And it's tough to find absolutely everybody. And of course, it's an imperfect science to identify who the absolute top 68 are. So if you are somebody that wants to be on the watch list and would like to have us take a look at us, do some background, then by all means, there is a place on the website to submit your name and to let us know that you are someone that is interested and hoping to be selected. So by all means, you can do that at upmyhockey.com, upmyhockey.com, under the UMH 68. Really excited about that coming in June to Vernon, British Columbia for the BC age group. So yes, I just wanted to give you guys a shout out about that. The programs are going great. The Peak Potential Hockey Project, we have one alive right now with the athletes in it getting better, expanding their game. I've developed the Inner Circle, a group for graduates that wants to continue on with their mindset development, and also my private practice, my MVP club, as I call it, is full right now. So everything is going great. It's awesome to be able to help athletes. If you are somebody that is been on the background and wants to finish their second half the best way possible, that wants to take their game to another level, that is looking to grow in ways that you haven't thought of before. Want to be able to recover from mistakes, grow your confidence, grow your leadership abilities, grow your practice habits and your attention to detail, and being able to navigate the controllables. There's so many things that we can work on in the Peak Potential Project, and we're always looking for new registrants for the next guided mission. So that's when you get 4 to 5 calls with me during the mindset training that I have created. So that is also available on the website. Lots of good stuff going on at Up My Hockey. So without further ado, let's bring you back to Conor Geekie and the conversation. You mentioned Mac, and there was obviously a lot of eyes on him this tournament, and with where he's supposed to be going, and had some really good games and kind of had some average games. Where do you see him at in the whole hockey landscape here coming into the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely would say we did become, best friends kind of over this tournament. I think we were kind of attached at the hip kind of the whole time. Just kind of by coincidence. I think, people, you could maybe ask a couple people, but we're kind of the same person in a way that, like I said, that's why the joking and stuff kind of happens so frequently. But he's such a like just all around good player. You have your Austin Matthews, who's got an unbelievable release, blah blah blah. Right, he was an incredible player. You got your Bedard, who's very cerebral, can see the ice, can shoot the puck. But Max kind of got that. He's great at everything, but he's not like phenomenal. You know what I mean? And I think that's what makes him so good. Is like his IQ is so good that it allows him to be able to do the things that he does. And I think obviously his hands are impeccable. You saw that numerous times at the championships, but he's just such a good guy and just a good person that he, like, not once did you ever hear a draft thing in the group of guys that we had. And I think that's what, is so cool to me, is that, I could say we're looking at his phone and, a clip of him will come up and it's an automatic swipe. There's nothing. And for me, I'm like, oh, this is my buddy. What's going on? And he'll just keep swiping for me. So, yeah, he's obviously a great guy. I think he, I'm maybe biased, but I think he could go on. Yeah, he's a great player wherever he goes. He's obviously they're going to be super fortunate to have a guy like him.
That's awesome. When it comes to his personality and even what you talked about there, that whole the world that lives on your phone, right? And the spotlight that was on you guys, and that must have been, I would assume, like for you even, right, being an 11th overall, like that's a lot of coverage. Now you weren't in Canada, so there would have been even more coverage, but like you kind of become more on the Canadian stage. I mean, people in Western Hockey League know you. You're a known commodity here, but now all of a sudden you're kind of a national commodity, and seeing what's going on in the coverage, and I guess with Macklin too, and I mean, there's so much, so much scrutiny on him. Is it a what's the right word? Like, is it a conscious decision of how you're going to participate in that from a social side and what happens on your phone?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think, I don't post a whole lot on social media. I definitely have Instagram. Don't get me wrong. I love looking at the memes. I love, getting a good laugh or whatever, seeing what my buddies are doing. But for sure, I think, when I was kind of going, they started talking about my knob of like a lot. And I was like, maybe this is a little excessive or whatnot. And I think after I made that hit, that's kind of when everything was like escalated by more. They videoed me walking to my seat, and there's maybe I think the jumbotron came up on me, and I was on my phone during the TV timeout, and then there's another like, you know what I mean? He's not watching the game, he's not doing this, and me being around Mac all the time, I think that was one spot where people focused in on. Again, I'm never gonna, obviously I have to watch what I say and do all that, but in front of the camera, I'm not gonna, be a different person. So, right. Yeah, it's definitely, you got to watch what you say, and you got to watch, what you're doing. And, I think the best way or best advice I could give to someone who kind of is going through it is just, always think that there's a camera on you, especially at a stage like that, obviously when you're at home or you're doing that. But, you always got to think like, what if this person saw it? It's like, what are you going to do? Like, what if, my dad saw it? Maybe it's different, but like, what if the GM of, so-and-so saw it? Well, then it's a completely different outlook, right? So I think I just tried to find a good balance for it. And, it ended up working out, I think, a little bit. And obviously people got a couple good laughs from how I tape my stick.
Oh man, the first time I saw it was that Jesse Polak. I don't even know who he works with. I think maybe it's Bar Down or whatever. And he was he had you on the bench and he was talking about I don't even know. What was he talking about with your socks? I couldn't even figure out what that with a back tuck. What does that even mean?
Yeah, so it's just like I pull my well, I know Dad used to do it. I'm sure you probably did too. Like I pull the socks so like there's the back of the skate and then like the front, and I just
Yeah.
pull them over the back. Like I think that's fairly normal, like a Euro tuck kind of thing.
Right, right.
And like I know Dad did it. I've kind of done it for a long, long time, and I just like this is the kind of first time that maybe they were all over me. I
Right.
definitely have gone lower kind of over the years, just
Right,
because I
right.
felt
Okay, so that is what it is. It's just over the back of the
yeah,
like your tendon guard or whatever. Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
pull a sock over the. Yeah, I was like, to me that I mean I did wear my skates like that, and I thought more people did. I didn't think it was that
Mhm.
exclusive, but
Yeah.
anyways, but yeah, the knob. I mean, well, since we're talking about it, and by everyone, the knob is like the handle part of the stick that he's holding. It's quite large. Has that grown over time, or is that all the way it's always been?
Yeah, like I think it's kind of gradually grown as I've gotten like as my hand gotten bigger, as I gotten stronger. But it's always kind of been like a bigger than average butt end. So I was like, and it just kept going, and then I finally like I found this is the most comfortable it's ever been. So I just kind of left it there. And then apparently people are saying this is the biggest it's ever been. I'm like, no, like you just you didn't see when it was like the like way too large to kind of hold your hand in it. So no, it's definitely a unique butt end. But again, it works for me, I think.
Yeah. Um, just quickly back to like the social media side. So like definitely you have to be aware of what's going on and just with your own like your behavior. We're still trying to be authentic to who you are. But I meant more like the consumption aspect of it. Like do you can you could potentially get lost in it a little bit. And a guy like Macklin who's only 17, right? Like that I don't know, like it's difficult. It's difficult for an adult, let alone for a teenage kid who feels like there's all this attention on him. Like, is that with him with the swipe? I mean, that's an amazing way to do it because you don't get lost in the scroll or you don't get lost in the feed. But I would assume that was something that he decided to do along with maybe some direction, maybe from someone like yourself, even, or maybe from someone like his inner circle. Like, just stay away from it.
Yeah, I think obviously, his family's obviously like a super genuine, really nice family. So I'm sure he got most of his advice from them. And I wouldn't really say, I gave him any advice. I try not to, like he's old enough. He's gone through more spotlights than I ever have, right? So I'm sure he knows how to handle all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's one of those things where any social media person always talks about getting lost in your phone, lost in this, lost in that. And I'll be honest, like, on TikTok, I've watched probably two movies just from scrolling, right? Like, you just see all these movie clips and stuff. But again, I think that's what we as a team in kind of Sweden did so well is like we played cards every night, and it was like four times a night, like just and nobody really went on their phones, right? Because you're just joking, you're chirping, you're bickering at guys, and then after the cards was done, we'd be like, oh, curfew's in, an hour. Let's just go play sewer ball in the hotel. So we would bring the soccer ball and we would just boot the ball around. And again, guys start chirping, guys do that. And then next thing you know, it's like you shower and you're sleeping. Right. And I think that's where we tried to find it. But yeah, I think, I don't really know how to kind of put it for someone who is getting lost in the scroll or whatever they're doing. I think it's just, you kind of just got to find that happy medium of
Right.
being able to go on your phone, but if someone's talking to you, you got to be able to listen too, right? So you
Yeah.
can't just have one or the other.
That's God, it sounds like you guys had like a really good thing there, from the way you're describing the environment and the culture and yeah, I mean, shit, it's a tough tournament. You mean, quite frank. I mean, there's good teams there, so it's not like it's an auto win for Canada. It's obviously, I'm sure everyone's coming home disappointed without the opportunity to play for a medal. Is there anything you can pinpoint? Was it just the teams were good and you guys just had a hard time, or what would be your reason? Do you think for being ousted there at the quarters?
Yeah, I don't know. You can kind of go at it a lot of ways. I think one thing is that I'll always use you as a reference. Like more than anyone. Like anyone can beat anyone, right? Especially a tournament like that. Like you look at the game where Switzerland almost beat Sweden, right? In the quarters. It's like anyone can beat anyone, and you can never go into a game thinking that it's automatic. And not saying we did, and I'm not. I don't really think there is an answer. I think it's just the way hockey is. I think you can't win every game. Don't get me wrong. I think maybe we wanted a couple bounces to go our way, but again, it's one of those things where sometimes you just fall short, and I think
Yeah.
people need to kind of look at that and understand that you're not going to win every game. You could be the best team in the country, or the best team in the world, and maybe you just fall short one game. Maybe you run into a hot goalie. Maybe an offside was called that maybe it was iffy, and it is what it is. And I think what helped or not helped us, but what we kind of look back on is that goal was going wide, right, and hits two sticks and it goes in. It's again it puts you in shock, right? You're like, there's no way we just lost like that, like in an innocent little play that you have no idea how it went in, but it did. And I think again that's just the hockey gods kind of doing their thing, and
Yeah.
obviously you want it to go a different way, but not every game are you going to get every bounce.
Yeah, man. The one and done tournaments are super scary because, yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, to all the points you just made, I mean, a hot tendy, a bad bounce, a bad call. It's it can go a number of different ways, and unfortunately for you guys, it didn't go the way you wanted. But you mentioned the hit. I mean, I think that was like what's your take on that? And I didn't follow closely enough, so I'm sure you've been asked this question 100 times. But what was your take on that whole major?
Yeah, I think. Well, initially, I knew Germany was, they were hot. I forget who they beat, or they didn't beat, but it was a must win for them. So, I knew, I kind of told some of the guys, I said, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to set the tone, I'm going to, get a body in early. And, I wasn't going, and I'll tell everyone this, I had no intentions to go and injure someone or do whatever, or, blow some guy up. But, I wanted to, being a bigger guy, kind of being able to play, that role of being a goal scorer and being that physical kind of playmaker. I said, I'm going to go, going to go try and get the momentum in the first shift. And, um, you know, I, I thought I kind of did the best I could to, limit the eyes of the hit, right? I, planted my feet. I've always been a bigger kid growing up, so I put my arms down. I just kind of skated through them, kind of exactly how I'm sure you teach kids to get hit or to hit. But again, I think it was just a matter of he was smaller, I was bigger, and I think the double AHF rules. It's hard, right? Because any head contacts as a major, so they made the right call. I think obviously in the heat of the moment, you have your mixed emotions, right? You want to, excuse me, you want to play for your country, you want to do all this, but again, I can't really be mad at anyone.
No.
uh, Obviously, you can be frustrated, but again, I had no intent to hit someone like that. I just, again, it's there, it's part of my game. I got to be a physical player,
Yeah.
so because to me, if someone's watching and they go, if I don't hit that guy, it's like, oh, why didn't he finish his check, right? So you kind of got to look at it that way too.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is the way. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you're supposed to do there. I mean, that's the thing that I said. Like, if anybody asked me, I thought it was a great hit. I thought you did everything right. Like as you kind of said. I mean, you're on the forecheck. The guy has the puck. You have him lined up straight. It's not a boarding call. He just happens to not be protecting himself, and either you like give him an ole, like a matador, right? And like get out of the way because that's where his head's going to be, or you stay your ground and that's in your lane. Like I I really don't know what you're supposed to do there. I don't know what you're supposed to do different there other than not hit him. Like, and that would be you realizing in the moment when you're already moving, the game's fast enough that you're supposed to get out of the way. And I don't think that's fair. So I don't know. I mean, because it was head on your arm or shoulder, like maybe they need to call it 2 there. 5 is a bit tough. My God, 11 seconds in, I felt sorry for you there. But I mean, whatever you do, I mean, it is a little different in Europe. It was a little different with the IIHF, and I mean that wasn't the only one, of course. Like there was lots that went under scrutiny there. Did that change your game at all? Like when you did get into the quarters, like was it something that you had in the back of your head that you couldn't maybe follow through on some hits that you would want to?
Not really. I think again, me being me, I was like, it's just part of my game. I think, I definitely think people understand that. Like I said, I wasn't trying to, hit the kid maybe as hard as I did. But I agree with what you said. I kind of just possessed my lane, and it's not like I blindsided him or I did any of that. I just, kind of stayed in my lane and kind of stopped my feet just to stand my ground. But no, against the Czechs, I probably had just as big a hit as that, and it didn't get called. I think it was just the same thing. This guy was just 6'1" instead of 5'10", right? So.
Right.
No, I didn't try to let it bother me because I know playing physical. I found out this year that I need to bring that into my game, and I play. I just trust my body a lot more now. Being able to box a guy out or use my body to kind of create space later on in the game. As just kind of when you constantly hit someone, they're probably not going to keep coming back. Yeah. So I just tried to emphasize that as much as I could, and. Again, I ended up making a big hit against Czechs as well, and trying to get the momentum back for us.
You watch? I'm sure you've seen him, Coach Chippy. He's on Instagram quite a bit.
Yeah, I've seen him a couple times. Yeah.
He did one that I thought was hilarious. He was like playing off the refs, like, and they were reviewing your hit compared to the one where the guy got put into the boards. Oh my God, he nails so many things. I think he's a good laugh. But anyways, how was that selection process? Like, I mean, I know you're having a beyond a breakout year. You're almost averaging 2 points a game, which, would put you up in that 150 point plateau, which would be crazy if you were able to play a full season. So, I mean, the numbers you're putting up are huge, but there's a lot of good players at that camp too, So like when you go into that selection camp, what was your attitude like for that? And to put your best foot forward and to make that team to begin with?
Yeah, I think, I go into anything, thanks to my dad and my 2 older brothers, always keeping me humble. Mom's more of the generous compliment type of person. But, I think, I was going in there knowing that, I don't have a spot on the team, right? I'm going in there and, I'm going to try and make it known that, I will compete. I will, do this and do all the little things right. And then not being able, I didn't play the 2 games against the U Sport team, the All-Star team. So I was kind of, obviously it ended up being a good sign, but, you start to get the itch when you see everyone playing and you're like, I wanted to play one game, but again, it was, during practice, it was just make sure I'm doing the little things, attention to detail, do all those things right, and then it ended up working out for me.
Oh, good for you. What I never realized you guys played the U Sports team. What were those games like?
Yeah, watching them were pretty good. I think, again, it's tough hockey to judge, right? Just because they're 2 teams that have never played with each other, and then they get thrown into an Olympic-sized rink, and you gotta say go play. So, no, they were good, and I think I think people overlook U Sports as well. I think there's a lot of good players in U Sports that I wouldn't say get the opportunity that they kind of deserve. And maybe some people just don't want that opportunity, right? I think some people definitely could have an impact on any team that they could go. I'm sure a lot of guys could go pro, but again, there's a lot of good players and a lot of good players on Hockey Canada that didn't get to go either. They were very fortunate to be able to call up 3 guys because a couple guys got hurt, right? So those guys got an opportunity, and again, there's tons of people that wanted to be on that team and that could have made that team, right? I think everyone, like you said, more about pro hockey than I do. It's everyone's there to take your job away, so you kind of gotta hold that spot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where a lot of the pundits point to too, like when there's no success. Well, look, why wasn't this guy on the roster, or why didn't this guy make it? And like it's one of those things. There's so many good players in Canada that you're going to leave somebody out, and the guys that did get left out, of course, aren't happy about it. But it is what it is. But back to did you guys win those games? Like, was it obviously competitive hockey, or what were the scores?
We won one, and I think they won one. Yeah, it was like really, really competitive, really tight, and again, it was fun to watch.
Yeah. No, U Sports is like, well, there's more guys that are coming out of that, like signing NHL deals, as I'm sure that you're aware of. It's always kind of been considered NCAA D1 is the the place where if you want to be a player, that's where you got to go. But that never really made sense to me in the first place, because you have the WHL and these guys graduate from the WHL and maybe they never got drafted, and that's where they go because they can't go to NCAA, right? There's a heck of a lot of good players in that league. So anyways, good to see that they got a little bit of a shutout there. I want to take another short break from the podcast just to again give a shout out and a thank you to everyone who has reviewed the podcast and has shared it in some way or another, whether it be in a conversation or whether that be with your son or daughter, or took the time to write a review. That is one way that this podcast that you can give back to the podcast. The podcast is a way for me. This is a vehicle for me. Obviously, it's an extension of what I do for my work now, which is helping athletes be their best, whether it be pro or junior players or minor hockey players that want to work on their mindset. And this program allows me to get some of the ideas and concepts out in a free scenario and hopefully provide value to those who are choosing to listen. And so if you are choosing to listen, and if you'd like to give back in your own way, a review is a great way to do it, or a conversation. And so I just want to take a time here to share a couple new reviews that have dropped recently. One is from Slayer Dudez via Apple Podcasts in the United States of America. Back in December, wrote a must for hockey historians, 5 stars. I randomly found out about this podcast after a brief but pleasant interaction with Jason on social media. Cool. I sometimes I don't know who Slayer Dudez was. Sometimes people do reach out and say something, but so awesome that Slayer found me somewhere on social media. He says, I'm glad that happened because this podcast is right up my alley. Great conversations, great guests, tons of candid insight on the journey of a professional hockey player. And I love the 90s. So cool. Glad we were able to meet there, Slayer. Thanks for the shout-out. Glad you enjoy it. Another one came in from F.I. Shersky in Switzerland. I love when we have people listening from all countries. When I had my 2023 report, I think it was like 74 countries or something crazy like that have downloaded an episode of Up My Hockey. That's kind of mind-blowing to me when I think about it. I couldn't name 74 countries, I don't think. So the fact that that there are hockey fans, essentially everywhere, and this podcast is being able to hit regions that I probably haven't even heard of before, I think that's pretty special and pretty cool. And F.I. Shersky says, great discussions with guests about hockey, 5 stars. Jason does a great job of bringing in great guests who share their insights about the hockey development world. Extremely interesting for players, parents, coaches, and fans. So that's awesome. Love the feedback. Love the support. Thanks for sharing, and great that we are growing this outside, where it started, the roots of Western Canada. That's kind of the idea. I think the conversations are timeless for the most part. And if you have listened recently, definitely go back, find some names that maybe interest you, because the conversations are all present time of the moment. The lessons from other people's experiences apply now as much as they did back then. So definitely go back and review and take a look at what we have in the archives. And I look forward to bringing you guys some amazing guests up here in 2024 and having an awesome an awesome year with the podcast. So thanks again. Let's get back to the conversation with Conor Geekie. Let's go to the draft if we don't mind. Like, so that was 2022. So now we're a year and a half removed from it. There's a lot of guys that would love to have been in your chair, and with the the interviews that you were doing, what was the lead up process to that like, as far as being selected by the Phoenix Coyotes? And walk me back to those couple days before, and who you maybe thought you were going to go to, and what you were thinking was going to happen.
Yeah, I think going kind of throughout the whole year, I think I had an okay year. Again, I think this is the first year where I'm happy with where I'm at, and my goal scoring abilities, my passing, whatever, my game. Definitely not satisfied, but I think that year, we had such a good team. It was kind of hard to kind of, I'm not going to say show yourself, but again, like when you have a team that we did, it's guys got to play roles, guys got to do this. And I was always kind of that guy that, I'd play any role that was offered to me. I wanted to be, benefiting the team in the best way I could. So, obviously a lot of media, a lot of talk kind of going into that year, especially with Sav, being my line mate that year. It was a lot. So, yeah, it was kind of, I don't know, I'd say a week before the draft. And, I had a couple of calls with, numerous teams. I think the combine, me and Sav didn't participate in the lifting stuff. So we just had a lot of interviews because our season ended like 2 days before we had to be there. So, when you get off a bus from Edmonton and then you got to get on a plane, you're probably not going to show your best fitness performance. So, that was that. So we just had a lot of, a lot of interviews, a lot of stuff like that. And, I felt a connection with Arizona right away. I think they kind of always had, there was always someone there that I talked to after the game or whatever or whatnot. And then we kind of got to the draft, and again, I talked to Arizona. Talked to obviously a certain few teams. Talked to Winnipeg. What else? And I talked to Anaheim quite a bit throughout the year, and so on and so forth. And then, so then the draft came, and we were sitting down, and as that year was kind of who was going 1, who was going 2, who was going 3, who was going 4. And it was pretty nuts. So, we saw that go down, and Buffalo was up, and I knew Sav was going to go to Buffalo. I don't know why, just a gut feeling. So, we were sitting right beside each other, and I said, watch this. And then he ended up getting picked. So that was really cool. And then Anaheim was up, and I also talked to Detroit, quite a bit. So I was like, oh, maybe Detroit's there. So Detroit went, I picked someone else. And then Buffalo picked, and then I was like, oh, Anaheim, I've talked to Anaheim quite a bit. And then they didn't pick at 10. And I was like, oh, so this is what people talk about when it's like you have genuinely like no idea or whatnot. And there's a guy on Arizona. We like made. I was looking down at their booth as they were talking, and I looked down, and he looked up at me. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's awkward. Like maybe I just got him looking somewhere else." And sure enough, they called my name. Almost fell down the stairs, but we stayed on my feet, and then so I got up there, and it was obviously really cool doing all the media stuff, and kind of going to Arizona for the first time, seeing all the camps and all that stuff. So it was a busy year for sure.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. So you mentioned there's a couple times where you thought, okay, maybe, where you starting to get into the headspace of like, when is this going to happen? A little bit.
Yeah, I think anyone would be lying if they said no. I think it's just about how drastic you think about it. I think me and my brothers were more or less just. I think we were doing we were joking around. We were hitting someone. I was, wrestling with Dad, and Mom was telling us to stop, and we were just like kind of joking around. And then the picks would come, and then if it wasn't me, it would be like, oh well. And then next thing you know, we're doing the same thing all over again. So,
Yeah.
no, it was good. It was it was cool, and I love Arizona. Like I said, I kind of had a feeling I was going to go there one way or another, and especially it's cool them trading up. It kind of shows, maybe they wanted me, obviously, right? It's not like they just kind of fell there. So, they made a trade up, and I'll be forever thankful for that
Yeah,
moment.
that's cool.
Sure.
Did you? I'm sure you don't, but so in my draft year, Toronto was my last meeting. So it was Cliff Fletcher was the GM,
Mhm.
and it was just me and Cliff in his hotel room actually, and he shook my hand and he told me the day before the draft, he's like, "You're going to be our guy next year," like to my face, like or tomorrow, like you're going to be our first rounder. We think we're not going to get you at 15 or 18, whatever they had. We're going to trade up to have you. So we'll see you tomorrow. Shakes my hand and says, we'll see you at the draft day table tomorrow. Right. So you can imagine, right? I mean, you were there. It was like, holy crap, that's like amazing. Told my agent, everything else. And the next day, sure enough, like they traded up to 10. And I was like overjoyed because I had a pretty crappy draft year, actually. Like it was not amazing. So saw my stock slip. I'm still going to be I'm still going to be top 10. I was like all jacked. And then they traded again down to 15. And then when they went to announce the name, the same thing as they do now, they're at their table and their mic switched on by accident. My name came over the mic, like when it wasn't their official time to pick. So my agent hits me and we're all excited. And anyways, and they walked up there and they took Eric Fischel, which was a goalie at the time, and it's obviously not me. And anyway, so it was like heart sinks, right? Like all the rest of it. And then I sat from 15 to 31 when I went. And I mean, that's 16 picks. You know how long that takes, right? And you're like, oh, I felt like it was never going to end. Like, it's so crazy where your expectations go, I guess, is my whole point of that story, right? Like, you have an expectation, whether that expectation is 6 and you go 9, that seems like a year, right? When it's 15 and you go 31, it feels like it's 5 days. But anyways, I'm glad you end up going to a team that appreciates you and that Coyotes are obviously on the up and up, which is interesting in and of itself. Like that's fun for you to be a part of that, but it also makes it harder for you to get there as well, which makes it a little more competitive. So I'm sure. Yeah. Well, what's the word from them, and what's the communication been like?
Yeah, no, like they, we talk a lot. I think I've done a lot of work with them through whether it's training, whether it's skating, they kind of always have someone come out and help me. So again, it's a business, right? They got to take who's playing the best. So I'm just trying to do my part this year to kind of make it known that I can come in and I can play right away. And I think I'm just going to keep focusing on that. And obviously a great organization. I love it. It's a ton of fun. Arizona's not a bad place to be, right? So again, it's a ton of fun. A lot of good people in that organization, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. Your first dip in the water there, you mean meaning it was your second training camp here this last year, and I don't know where your mindset was for the first one. Obviously, you I'm sure you wanted to make the team as everyone does, and but anyways, it's a whole new experience. Obviously, you're playing with pros, you're playing with men, you get to see kind of the level of things there. This year, I'm sure you had a better idea of what to expect, and you're feeling more comfortable with everything. Like, what has been your learning process so far about that environment and what it takes?
Yeah, I think the first year I got hurt, right? So I had a high ankle sprain, so you kind of you're not going to take a guy who's injured, right? And I knew I wasn't ready. I think that's something that people need to know about me is I'll always be honest with myself. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew as much as every kid dreams of playing when they're 18. I knew I wasn't ready. So yeah, I kind of took that back to Winnipeg. Obviously, we had a good run there. I played good in playoffs, and I knew I needed to have a big summer. So I, did everything I could to, so I trained in Arizona, I trained in Calgary, I trained here in Brandon. I, skated as much as possible with, all sorts of different, techniques and trying to figure out what's going to work for me. But the biggest thing I just worked out, like, crazy. I think someone was interviewing me, and I told them, I said, like, sometimes it felt like I just didn't have a life, and I was fine with it, right? I just, kept going to the gym, kept doing this, and it was the same thing every day. And, people obviously, like, you're a pro. It's once you get into a routine, you just go and you just keep taking it with you. So I got into a really good routine and headed up to Arizona. I went to development camp before the summer, and they were hard on me, and I wasn't. Again, I thought I had a good whatever development camp, but they kind of told me what I guess you could say what I needed to hear, or whatever, to kind of motivate me. And yeah, it stuck with me. It still does. I think it's everyone knows once they get bad news, you kind of got to take it one or two ways. And it's just kind of been a motivational point for me from the start of the summer to now. So yeah, and then I went to a rookie tournament. Me and Josh Stone, we're roommates together. We we are best friends now, but we became really close, and we both had great turnouts. I think he had 7 points in 3 games, and I had 6. So we were really happy with that. And then preseason came, and we were on a line again, and he had a hat trick in the first game. I had 2 assists, or a goal and assist, and we were like, okay, like, we come back to the room, and obviously being guys, we were like, let's go, whatever, hyping each other up. And then the next game, I got injured. I got a concussion, and then I was like, been here before. So I was like, okay, let's just get this over with. Let's rehab it as quick as possible. And then so rehab was good. It was done, and there's like a week off for preseason games, and I knew around this time, this is when they pick they're obviously the bubble guys stay, right? But they send guys to the A, or they send guys home. And so we would practice and whatever. It was really awesome to practice with guys like Clayton Keller is obviously one guy that I try and talk to the most there, and Nick Schmaltz and Lawson Krause and all those guys, all those older guys. And yeah, so practice there, and again, I was told I was going home, and again, I thought I, did everything I possibly could to, make a statement and try and make the team. And then, again, you got to look at yourself in the mirror, and you said, well, if I was there, am I really going to be ready? Like, is this genuinely where I want to be, or do I want to go one more year? And then when I come into the league, it's like, there's no, slow start. There's no this. Like, I'm right into it. So I told Dad, and I said, I think obviously everyone wants a better turnout. Nobody likes getting sent home. So
Yep.
I just came back to Wenatchee, and like I told Sorda, I said, I'm not coming here to lose. So let's be ready. And ended up having a good start to the year now, and just looking to keep it going.
Sweet. What was the communication there? So when they do let you go, I just wonder if that's changed at all. Like, is there any type of feedback on the departure, what you didn't do, or what they want you to see more of?
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing is like I wouldn't really say they gave me any negatives, right? I think they were, from what I got from it, obviously I'm not, part of the staff or whatever. I felt like I had a good camp, and I think they did too. It's just, some guys just aren't ready, right? So they just said, I want you to get bigger. I want you to get stronger. I want you to, put a lot of effort into skating, a lot of effort into this and that. And, it sticks with me, right? Because I want to, I'm an ultra competitive person, whether it's playing cards or trying to make pro. I think it's, I look at it like that. So I really emphasize that. And then, Andre Tierney, the head coach, Bear, as most people know him, but he pulled me aside and said, this is what we got to work on. It's all the little details, this and that. And, you kind of take off. So you kind of go through. You go into Bill Armstrong's office, and then you go talk to him. So it's a pretty intimidating 10 minutes. So
yeah, sure it is. If you don't mind, like, I think, well, you know what the podcast is all about, like that. the digging in of like, I think there's little micro decisions that players make, on their journey, and there's some things that they go through that turn out to be, really breakthrough sort of moments. And maybe there was one there in that development camp. You said you kind of got your wrist slapped a little bit, and in whatever way, you probably felt like you were going in there feeling pretty good. You felt like you're probably having your work ethic down. I've been there before, and I've worked with enough guys now to know that sometimes there is sort of this moment where it's either you take it and you're kind of awakened to this idea that there is more for me, that maybe I have to hold the bar a little higher, or you feel like maybe it's unjust what they're saying too. Like, what was the discussion there? And if you don't mind sharing that, how did they kind of share that they weren't super jacked as excited as you thought they might be?
Yeah, I think I would say I've always been like a lankier, bigger build or lanky build, I guess you could say. So,
Yeah.
I knew my gym numbers weren't ideal, but I was still growing into my body. I was still doing that. On the ice, again, it sometimes it does look like I'm maybe not putting in the most effort, right? But that's just you've seen probably players that do it too. It's Austin Matthews doesn't always take 18 hard strides to go get the puck, right? He normally just kind of mellows out, coast to coast or whatever. So, that was one of the things for me. They just said we want to see more grit, we want to see more effort, we want to see more results in the gym. And he said, I know you can do it. You played really well in the game, but like your practice habits and how they word it, they're awful, they're this, they're that. And then I'm sitting there in the hot seat, kind of just like, oh, okay. And, I called Dad, and I think the biggest thing for me is, when people say I'm not competitive, I think that's the most, that or a liar. I think those are two of the biggest insults, I could be called. So I literally went home. I told Dad, I said, like, or my mom actually said it, not my dad. She said, well, I think they poked the bear. And I said, I think so too. So I was a long, grueling summer where, I wouldn't really say, obviously I hung out with my friends and did all that, but when it was time to work, it was, every single day it was a grind. So, that's kind of how I went about it. Again, you kind of, and for me, how my brain works is you just kind of, I made it more of an insult than, a lesson, kind of an FU to whoever it is. And it could be the smallest little thing. I think it's, I'm sure you've watched the Michael Jordan documentary. It's like he made lies to get an edge on someone, right? And I'm not saying I go to that extent by any means, but
yeah,
just finding, those little things to make an edge for me in my brain that clicks. And I think that's anything to do with, competitiveness or honesty or whatever it is.
How tall and how heavy are you now?
6'4", like 208, kind of 210 area.
Big boy. Have you stopped growing now? Like as far as up?
Yeah, like I think so. I don't really know. I'm a lot more coordinated, so I think I'm done.
Where do you think's going to be like when you're all said and done and in your man body? Like, where do you think you're going to top out for weight?
Yeah, probably like 210, 215. Like, again, you don't want to be too heavy, right? Like, I feel like I'm the most comfortable at this. And again, it fluctuates so much, right? It's 208 one day, I'm 202 the next day, I'm 205. Like, it kind of varies, but I think, if I didn't play hockey for, I guess I'll see now, but if I didn't play hockey for a week, I think I'd be, the 207, 208 range. So, again, you don't want to be too heavy. I think, like I said, I'm the most comfortable I've ever been in my body. I'm probably the strongest I've ever been too when it comes to just, on my edges. Someone can knock me and I feel like it's nothing, right? I think, I used to fall down quite a bit, but now it's more or less just, feeling strong and sturdy. So I'd probably just keep it here for a while.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, I mean, then there's going to be like kind of more what I meant by that is, of course, you can add weight by, working out and getting
Yeah.
bigger muscles, but there's also just going to be like a maturation process with you just being a man, right? That you're going to
Yeah.
get denser and heavier, right? So you might just put on a few pounds with not even working out at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, man, that's what an advantage too. Like that is nice. And you mentioned earlier, being able to use that and understand how to use it as part of your game, right? And how to grow into that aspect of it and become, obviously the finesse doesn't have to leave, but the ability to have a little bit more physicality to it, right? Or being able to, use your body in areas around the net. That's going to be nothing but an advantage for you, especially as you turn the corner into the NHL. So exciting stuff, man. Yeah, I really don't got anything. I think the only thing actually I maybe would like to ask is just even back to that draft season, because I think that struck a tone, because I know there's a lot of places, and I can relate to it even as you were saying it. I mean, you in a draft scenario, obviously you want minutes, and in a good team, there's only so many minutes to go around, right? So like to be the first PP and to be the first guy on the 4-on-4 and all these things that I'm sure you wanted and were good enough to have, you had to share that. And not only share that, but share that with a guy who you're competing against for a draft spot, and your buddy Savoy, right? So how was that between the two of you? Because I know, well, it seems like you guys are pretty tight, and that you guys are friends. Was that something discussed between the two of you? Was that something that you had to manage on your own? How did you go about that draft year?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, again, I got a lot of really good friends through the hockey thing, but, we are probably, really, really close. And I think we just knew, right? I think it was kind of just mutual, like, we're on the same team. We have the same common goal, but like, if he's getting more minutes, I'm not going to be mad. But if I'm getting more minutes, he's not going to be mad at me either, right? I think it's for people to understand that it is what it is, right? You kind of got to accept the fact when you're on a good team that they're going to play, the best lineup, the best players. Maybe he's having an off night and I'm having, the best night, right? I'm probably going to get more, but it goes vice versa. So we always played together, though. That was the thing I think that made it a lot easier, is that we were normally on the same line, and we ran our power play together, so we were both on the same flank. And again, we kind of did it all together, which I think helps a lot. But
How did James Patrick? So when we use the word Jeep, that's James Patrick, the head coach. How did he manage that between the you guys, or just in general, even you specifically, that draft year? Was he a big part of it for you being able to navigate that season?
Yeah, no. Again, Jeep has got me to where I am today. I genuinely wouldn't be the player I am without him. So yeah, he kind of, he was hard on me. I'd say I had probably the shortest leash out of anyone on that team, and I think took me a while to know. I tell him this every time I see him. There's times that I'm sure we both wanted to throw a couple hands, but we kept it in, and I think that's what made us so good, is that we could have that moment on the bench of maybe he's giving me a hard time, and I don't agree, and then the next shift it's good shift, pat on the back, and it's like, okay, like, here we go. It was so good at that. And I think with me and Sav, he went through it, right? I think he was a 4th overall, maybe, or lower than that, maybe. I don't even know. But, I'm not saying, obviously the social media has gotten way bigger, than it was back then. But he kind of knew that it was a big thing and it was important. So he let us do our thing, but he kind of always had our backs. And I think, maybe it was his plan to kind of keep me and Sav together. I don't know, but
Right.
obviously it worked for a while.
Cool, man. Well, I know there's big things ahead, and it's an exciting time here off to new. Where are you right now? Actually, where are you sitting as you're doing this?
I'm in Brandon right now, just heading home. I'll go to Strathclair, right after this. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you're down to when does Swift play, or when's your next game with them?
I head to Swift on the 8th, and then we play on the 9th in Swift, so it'll be good.
Awesome. Cool.
I'm excited. Yeah. New number too, so it'll be different.
Yeah. Back in the East Division. So yeah. Anyways, we'll have fun with that. Appreciate you having the time, and like I said, we'll be rooting for you, as I know you got a lot of people out here in Western Canada rooting for you. And great to see you put on that Coyotes jersey, hopefully next season.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool, man. Have a great day.
Thank you. See ya.
Cheers. Well, thank you for sticking around to the end of the conversation with Conor. Conor, thanks again for your time. Awesome discussion. And I didn't actually mention when I talked in the intro about Morgan. I didn't mention Craig, who is the dad of these two young men, Conor and Morgan. And Craig is somebody that I played with back in Spokane. And so I think Craig was a 20-year-old when maybe it was my draft year, if I got those ages right. But anyways, spent a full season with Geeks, and now we have Geeks Junior coming along. So as you heard in the interview, how many times Conor mentioned mom and dad, like uh, he wasn't told to do that. That was just Conor being Conor, and what an impact and influence mom and dad have had on him and his brothers. It's obviously a great environment out there that they've created to be able to have the success that they've had. And apparently there's an older brother that is just as good of an athlete, if not better than Morgan and Conor, and was a baseball player or is a baseball player and went to pursue that route. So shout out to the Geekie family for creating great humans and great athletes. And I hope you guys are doing well out there. And yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed that conversation with Conor. So much going on. I mean, we got to remember that these young men are just young men, 18, 19 years old, and on these stages that that a lot of us couldn't handle as adults. So yeah, I mean, the fact that they're able to be themselves, that they are able to perform, and they're able to navigate this world that they're in, is pretty impressive. There's a lot of growing up to do, and I think that's one of the great things about our game is at the moment, like at the time when I was playing World Juniors and doing the whole draft thing and going to camps and being in Miami and all the things that happen. It's just happening to you, and you're not really patting yourself in the back for being able to navigate it and being able to leave home and have your own apartment and car and manage all the things that you're managing. But the sport will do that to you. The sport requires you to grow up. It requires you to have an emotional maturity. It requires you to be accountable to what it is that you deem important. And I think that the more that we can prepare our athletes for these types of moments, like the whirlwind that Conor's been through here in the last 6 months, from the relocation of his junior team to the selection camp of the World Juniors, to making it, to losing in the quarterfinals, to having a coach being fired when he was at training camp for the Arizona Coyotes, the team that he wanted to make and a team that he wanted to play for. Like, this is all in the span of what, 6 months, 7 months? That's a lot. And he seems to be coming out of it just fine with his production there at the current pace that he's at, and that is a testament, I think, to the game itself. That's a testament to probably the Winnipeg Ice organization and to Jeep, his former coach, and the inner circle that they had there that was looking after him, and also obviously to mom and dad and his brothers that there was a solid environment there growing up to keep these young men grounded and to keeping them, with their eyes on the prize and staying humble and all those good things, yet still maintaining a real high work ethic and a real high sense of, respect for the game that I find really, it makes me smile. I think that's awesome. And Conor is really a great young man. And I think he shows why our game's so great, that I think it does produce great people. So thank you to the Geekie family. Thank you to Conor. Thank you for everyone out there who's trying to work their ass off to get to where they want to go. That's one of the coolest things about having big dreams, is that it requires work. It requires big work. Big dreams requires big work. And just recognize that your process is your process. And if you can pick up a couple tips, a couple things here and there along the way to help you grow your development curve, to help you get to where you want to do, that means you're doing the right thing. And the more that we can find some joy in the process, the better off we are. So Best of luck to everyone in 2024. I know that we just did a big review with my inner circle and my private clients about what the first half looked like and what we want the second half to be. If you're a player out there still listening now, by all means, look back on your first half. Give yourself an audit. How did I perform? What was my offensive impact like? What was my defensive impact like? How was I in the room? What was my dressing room impact like? How did I build a relationship with my coaching staff and with the players on my team? What is my approach like to practice and to the gym? How am I showing up on a daily basis? Take a look. Take a good, honest look at yourself and see what you've done well. See where your lessons were in the first half and things that you can extract from those games and from those first few months of the season that you can now add to your game in the second half. Definitely great lessons there, and when you can do that on a regular basis, you're going to learn faster, right? You're going to grow faster. You're going to apply intention to new things when you show up at the rink, which is only going to add to the stats in the back of your hockey card. So best of luck to everyone out there in 2024. And as always, play hard and keep your head up.